Beast OCR proudly presents BeastNet Podcast, sponsored in part by GH Under's Performance Base Layers and supported by the OCR community. Here we discuss all things OCR related. Welcome to BeastNet.
Hey everybody, it's Mike with BeastNet here, and with me today I have Antonio from Grit OCR. How you doing, Antonio?
Great, man. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah. So for those of us that don't know, kind of give us an idea of who you are and what Grit OCR is.
Yeah, so we're a local race here in Santa Clarita. We're north of LA, and we're going on our third year. We host our race annually, and for the past 2 years, it's been in February, and it will be in February again this upcoming year. We're a mom and pop shop over here, and we're looking to maybe push it a little more forward and have a few more races next year. But yeah, we're basically just a local OCR.
Nice. So that's Grit OCR. But what about you? Who's Antonio?
Who's Antonio? The bigger question.
Who's Antonio? Yeah.
I am somebody that got into obstacle course racing in 2012. I did a Tough Mudder and kind of got hooked from there. And 3 or 4 years ago, my wife and I decided that we wanted to invest in something, and we were thinking about real estate or possibly opening up a gym. And we opened up a bottle of wine and came up with the name Grit. And at the time, we were going to be an obstacle course race training facility. That was our goal.
Yeah.
And we started digging into it and decided that running our other business, which has nothing to do with OCR, while simultaneously trying to open up a gym, we were pretty much setting ourselves up for failure because we're both perfectionists and we want to pour our entire heart into it. So one day we decided that we were going to just get our brand out there and sponsor a trail race. So we brought our tent and all of our equipment, which was just, all of our garage gym equipment, to this trail race that was local. And as we were setting up, I started talking to the race directors, and I asked them if they'd ever wanted to do an OCR. And they said, yeah, we'll do it together, you and us. Just like that, just right off the cuff. And I was like, okay, you're crazy. And, I went home that night and I couldn't sleep. I was just thinking about it. I'm like, that is actually a really good idea. And it basically all spawned from there. So I'm just a family man in Santa Clarita that decided to open up a small business. And I don't know why most people don't do this, but I opened up an obstacle course race.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I've actually wanted that too, because that's one thing. I don't know. You said you've listened to a couple of the episodes that I've been really having issues with up here, and where I'm at in Seattle is we don't have a lot of them up here. And
you'd be surprised. We don't have any here either.
Yeah. And that's just it. I mean, you guys, did what a lot of us have thought about doing is why not just start our own? I'll be honest, I have obstacles in my front yard just so I can practice. But, it would be doable. It's just a matter of getting a group of people together and doing it. And I know the Beast OCR, we have talked about it, and there is a possibility that in the next year that might be something that we try. But it's a big undertaking in some ways, but I don't think it's as big as some people make it. So how hard was it, really, to go from the concept of do it to actually having a race?
It's a endurance event altogether, and it depends on what kind of infrastructure you have to be able to put it on. I wanted to make it like a mom and pop shop where we did everything in-house. So we partnered with a company called New Global Adventures, and New Global Adventures host trail races all over Santa Clarita, where we're from, and then they also help host races around the world, like in China and parts of Asia. So they had the logistical part of it down, registration, aid stations, parking, all that stuff. And then my wife and I, we just had to bring the obstacles and the community into it. So it was a really good collaboration between us. But it is a very massive undertaking. And the only way to be successful, in my opinion, and this is just like, how I look at it is you have to keep your overhead extremely low in the beginning and do everything yourself, even though you don't want to, so that you give yourself the ability to grow. And I think that when you see a lot of these races spawn, it's because it's guys that don't want to do things, from the ground up. They want, somebody to build the obstacles, and they want somebody else to design their website, and then somebody else to do their marketing, and they're bleeding money in all the directions, where we did literally everything ourselves. We design our website. We do all of our own marketing. We built all of our own obstacles. We deployed all of our own obstacles. We broke down all of our own obstacles, everything from start to finish. And you have to really be someone that's all in. And I encourage everybody to do so. It's an amazing experience, man. Like, coming from the idea of opening registration and then dealing with the emotional roller coaster that is watching people flow in, maybe in, not as fast as you want them to, because most people sign up in like the last 2 weeks before a race. But going from that first person that signs up to the last person that crosses the finish line is unbelievable, man. It's a great experience.
Oh, I bet. And that's one of those things that, we've talked about and all that kind of stuff, but I think it's like you said, you really have to go for it. So,
yeah. And for us, my wife and I, we are partners in another business. I own a custom home automation company, which is, a huge undertaking here in LA. There's just a huge customer base, and we're working 60-hour weeks. So basically our first year of Grit, we would, I'd be working like 60-hour weeks, and I would come home at night and I would build obstacles in my garage. I would break them down and I would ship them to a storage unit. And it was just every day, every weekend, just grinding, getting these obstacles built, and then, answering emails at night. It was huge. It was a big deal. I wasn't like the Joe DeSantis or the guys that started Tough Mudder, where they had this huge, pot of money where they were able to get this off the ground and get it running and at full speed. It was more of like a trickle for the first year. And then the second year, we had a little more breathing room because a lot of the stuff was already done, but I don't want to keep releasing the same obstacles every year. I don't want everybody to run the same course every year. So every year, I plan, something that we're actually going to be doing this weekend is starting production of another obstacle. So it's a full-time job on itself, but it's definitely an endurance event, man. You gotta be fit mentally and physically.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that if it was something that we took on up here, I think we'd have to make sure we had that core group of people that are actually going to be dedicated. I mean, if you have people that are going to be like, yeah, I could do that on the weekend, or I could do that, it's not going to work. You need a group that's going to actually like get together and say, okay, we're going to do this after work every day and put the time in. And that's what it sounds like you guys did. I mean, like you said, not all of us can, fork out a bunch of money and say, okay, here, you go build my website. Here's some ideas. I want obstacles that kind of look like this, make it happen. And we can't do that. It's pretty much one of those, okay, this is kind of what I want it to look like. I better go get some wood and, some bars and figure out how I'm going to make this happen. And that sounds like that's what you guys did. You just had ideas and started putting them together.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But, one of the things I love most about obstacle course racing and just fitness in general is the community aspect of it. And my wife and I and our partners, we would be nothing without the people that banded around us and helped us through this whole experience. It was huge. I remember sitting down with our partners and talking about volunteers and saying that, hey, for a race day, we're going to need about 80 volunteers. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, how the hell are we going to find 80 people to give up their Saturday just to come out and help us out for free? And it just happens. And all of a sudden you just see people volunteering like, yeah, I'd love to come out and help. And then all of a sudden our friends would show up at our garage and be like, hey, do you guys need help carrying obstacles? And we would be out on the course on build week, and all of a sudden people would be showing up that we didn't even expect to show up. And they're like, hey, do you need a hand? So honestly, like, aside from the reward that you get from seeing people cross the finish line and having a great time on race day, the reward of seeing an entire community of people come together to help make a dream work was probably, I'd say, the most rewarding part of it. Especially this year. This year we had ridiculous weather all of race week. So it was pouring rain, and we had a really small build crew, and we would have not been able to pull it off hadn't, a bunch of our friends and family just show up and grind through it with us. So that was probably one of the best parts. It has been one of the best parts about this whole experience.
And yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, that's one thing I've always loved about OCR for most of it is the community. I mean, you can get good community. I mean, you get a good community behind you, you can do quite a bit. And, I would love to see more courses and races like you're describing up here. I've seen a couple where people will try it 1 year and then all of a sudden they disappear. They try it once and that's it.
It's a lot of work. People expect, for us, it's a passion project. And I think people think they're going to get rich off of doing it. No. And they're not looking at the bigger picture. So they want that immediate return. And one of the reasons I started getting into obstacle course racing and just this whole, I do trail running, go roughs and all that, but it really teaches you about delayed gratification. It teaches you about, just pushing through pain and dealing with failure. And that's basically what running in a small business is like. It's delayed gratification, pain, suffering, emotional roller coasters. And if you're a good OCR athlete and you're able to deal with all that, you could definitely transfer all of that, mentality into business or, starting something. And that's why I decided that I decided I didn't want to go to college, and that wasn't for me. So I learned most of my life lessons by, blood, sweat, and tears on an OCR course. Yeah.
And sometimes that's great. I mean, I talk about it a lot in my real life. I'm a safety professional for the construction industry. So, I do a lot of going on to job sites, making sure people are safe. And you see a difference there's two types of safety professionals out there. There's those that have gone to school, went to college, and know all the rules. They know the rules. They know what safety is. They know what they're supposed to be doing. And there's ones like me who I don't have a college degree, but I've spent a lot of time out in the field. So I know what the rules are, but I know what reality is too. So it takes both, because you need the guys that, have the college to understand it. But guys like us that just kind of went out and did it, we have a completely different perspective on how to do things, because it's like, we didn't go to college. We didn't read all the textbooks. We didn't do all that. We just kind of went out and did it, and it gives a different perspective, and it's perspective to life. So it does.
What's funny is I see that a lot of people start small races on the East Coast, like in New York, Boston. There's a whole bunch of homegrown OCR. And I grew up on the East Coast. So I grew up in Brooklyn, and I moved out here when I was about 15. And I think it's because, some of that is because those blue-collar jobs are just so much more prominent on the East Coast. There's just such this big construction industry. And there's no, you don't go to trade school for that. You just get thrown in, and this is, what you do. And I feel like it's that whole idea of just jumping into a job and learning as you go and being an apprentice is just getting lost. My generation just doesn't do that. And I agree completely. I grew up on construction sites, and it's just like, sink or swim. And I just try to apply that mentality to doing this, building this obstacle course race. And I honestly had so many points where I thought it was just going to implode, and we were only going to have 50 people there on race day, and which would have still been fine. But you just can't, obviously you just can't run a business that would be able to sustainable with only 50 people showing up on race day. But
that's very true.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of these smaller OCRs, they just kind of, call it quits after that first year, because they maybe were expecting 2,000 people and they only got 400, and they were able to break even their first time, and they're like, this isn't worth it. But again, it's all about that delayed gratification, and then really giving people a great experience from the start line to the finish line. And then those people that maybe don't have a great experience, because you just can't help everybody, just, make sure that they're willing to come back for that second time. And we had very few, it was amazing. The days after our first event, we just sat down, we were reading all the Facebook replies, and we had about 100 emails come in from people that provided feedback, and it was all positive. And honestly, I was just like, I can't believe how awesome that is. Just getting all this positive feedback. I've never done that. I've never gotten done with a race and been like, I'm going to write an email about how cool it was. I've never had a bad OCR experience ever.
Yeah.
So it was really cool to get all that feedback. And then also, like, there was a few people that, we did a disservice to our first year. We got one guy lost. And I'm like, dude, you're going to race our race for free for the rest of your life. The rest of your life, you're going to be able to come to a great OCR without having to worry about signing up and paying. And that's when awesome. You're a homegrown OCR, those are the kind of things you need to do. And you create that family vibe.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you have to. It's that, like you said earlier, you used the perfect phrase, the mom and pop.
Yeah.
It's that mom and pop mentality of we're, to use restaurants, for example, we're not McDonald's. You don't know what's on our menu, so we have to have a little bit of personality and other stuff to go with it to get you to come back and to show you that we have a great product. It's a great product. Yeah. It's a better product probably, but it's not something you've heard of. So let's get you out here and, if you have a bad incident like that where you said the guy, got lost, you gave him free races for the rest of his life. I mean, you can't really complain about that. It's like, hey, we made a mistake. We're going to make it right. And that's what makes the company great. Yeah.
And it was a clear mistake, and for us, we want to get to that next level where that's not even, a possibility. I've never gotten lost during a Spartan race. They have flagging on every inch of those courses. Our first year, a cone got moved, and, that happened. But now this year and last year, that's our biggest focus, is making sure that we learn from our mistakes and we go forward. And honestly, it's great hosting an event in this community. And I hope that you guys do it. And I hope that more people just start bringing up these small races, because that's what we need.
We do. We really do. I mean, because that's the thing, like I said, I feel like we don't have enough up here. And there's been a couple race companies that have tried to come up here, and they'll, advertise it. And then usually about 3 or 4 months before the race is about to happen, they back out because they didn't get enough people signed up. And it's like, like you said earlier, it's usually about a month to 2 weeks before when all of a sudden everyone's like, hey, I forgot to sign up for this race. It's coming next month. I better do it now. Yeah. Because I don't know how many people in the last one that pulled out, they're like, oh, I was going to sign up for that. Darn it. It's like, well, maybe if you would have, it would still be happening.
Yeah, our first year, we got 50% of our signups within the last month. So
yeah,
it was a learning experience for me, because I was freaking out, going, okay, this isn't. I got like all of this positive feedback from social media and people saying that they were going to come, and then a month before, I'm like, all right, I'm happy with where we're at, but I wish it was a bigger crowd so that everybody could feed into the energy. And it doubled with it, in the last month, and it was great. And I think that's a really hard thing for some people, especially when it's, for me, I'm in a situation where it's not how I'm feeding my family. So I don't have a lot of economical pressure. So, for me, it'd be like, it was a passion project, but I could tell, like, if this is the way that you make your living and this is what you're diving into, I could see how it could be tough seeing those low signups 3 or 4 months in advance. And then knowing that you're going to have to fork out the same amount of money if 200 people come or if 1,000 people come. That's tough.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's one of the hard parts about getting companies to come up here to Seattle is, that, late sign up, and, it's a big stretch because a lot of the companies, if they're coming up here, they're traveling. I mean, most of the other companies, the closest they are, East Coast or some of them in California, but they're still usually an East Coast company, but they happen to have maybe a race or two in California. So they're somewhat close, but not really,
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the Beast OCR, we do have a couple endurance events that we do, but we haven't done really stretched out to the racing yet. There's been talk of working with a venue up here that already does races and doing stuff, but that's something that's a hush hush. I'm not supposed to talk about. I'll probably get in trouble for saying it on the podcast, but whatever. It happens. It won't be the only thing I get in trouble for, so Oh, so What I know you said that you've been an OCR athlete for a while. What got you into it? What was the thing that suddenly one day was like, I want to do this?
I was in
to even start racing it.
I saw Tough Mudder in a magazine, and I got back to my gym. I was going to like this local, kind of like a small boot camp gym out here, and I was talking to the people that I do my classes with. I'm like, have you ever heard of this? And I was like, no, I don't even know what that is. I was like, let's get a team together. Let's just do it. And the team started out at like 15 people, and then by the time it actually became, down to race day or signing up, there was like 7 of us. So it was me, my wife, my sister-in-law, and then one of the trainers from our gym and 2 or 3 other people. And actually my sister-in-law ended up marrying that trainer, and they have 4 kids now in a house in Texas just because of that one day.
Oh, nice.
So that was really cool, seeing that, like, just that one day and having that kind of experience together led to, the birth of 4 children and a marriage and this, like, entire life path. Just that one day. And that's, obviously I didn't know that at the time, but I saw, you don't get those kind of experiences day to day with people.
No.
You go out to dinner or you go have some drinks with friends and you leave and you'll never remember that night again. But I'll always remember our first Tough Mudder, that whole day. It was just so much fun. So I became addicted to that. And we started doing Spartans and Battle Frogs and really got into Spartan for a while and was doing, I only did like, I think the most I've done in 1 year was a triple trifecta. My wife, was an avid Spartan racer, and we never really did it competitive because I'm a larger dude. I'm not that fast on a trail. So mostly just go out there, have some fun. And I like more of like the grind events like Hurricane Heat or Go Ruck. That's where I'm happiest, rather than, sprint on a course. But it keeps evolving, man. Like now I'm getting into ultra running and longer trail race events. It just kept snowballing.
And see, that's what's awesome. That's what I hear from so many people when I talk to them is how it's usually a random encounter that got them in OCR. A lot of times it's either, like you said, you happen to randomly see Tough Mudder, or it's the one I hear a lot of times too is, oh, I had a friend that saw this, Spartan race or Tough Mudder and said, hey, we should do that. So I signed up and then they never showed up. And I did it by myself and I met these people and the community was great and I loved it and I stayed. And that's usually what you hear is you get that first experience. It's a life, for most people, it's a life-changing event. Like, there's the OCR people are a completely different breed of people. I know I talk about like the Beast OCR a lot, but it's not just Beast OCR. It's the whole community. I've never been alone on a race, no matter where I was. And I mean, it's an amazing community. And that's why, I love companies like you guys that are bringing, smaller races, bringing more people in and getting more people into this wonderful community. So,
yeah.
So you started off with the Tough Mudders and Spartans? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so Tough Mudder Spartan, I think Tough Mudder, they market themselves as the toughest event on the planet. I think they're the most fun event on the planet. It's not really, I've never like gotten past the Tough Mudder finish line and been like, holy crap, that was really tough. Aside from doing Toughest Mudder, which was like the 8-hour multi-lap, that was obviously harder.
Yeah.
But Tough Mudders are just fun. And then Spartan Race, those are kind of, more intense. The vibe is like, you really need to push yourself. You really need to like push past your limits and be a different person. And then I've tried to come in between that where our race is tough. Our terrain's tough. Our obstacles are tough. But, we're really not pushing any obstacle penalties on people that are in open waves. We just want people to come out and have a good time. We don't want to shame people for not completing an obstacle. We're not promoting a certain fitness level. We're just saying, hey, come out and have some fun.
Right on. And do you guys have a competitive heat, or is it just you come and you race?
Yeah. So last year was our first competitive wave. We had our first male and female competitive wave, and we cap those out at 50 people each, just because we don't want bottlenecks, and we haven't really gotten to the point where it's nailed down. So we're trying to make it like really fair and make sure that we have enough infrastructure so that, if you're in a competitive wave and you get to an obstacle and you have to wait, it's really not a competitive wave. You should have, that course should be open for you. And right now we're at about 4 lanes for each obstacle. Aside from our carries, we overdo our carries. We have enough implements to go around, but we haven't gotten to the point where we're more than 4 lanes. So I want to make sure that we never get to a situation where somebody was cheated out of an obstacle place or a placement because of the lack of lanes. And I've seen that in a lot of other races that, they have these competitive waves and there's only 1 lane for certain obstacles. And it's like, well, how does that work? Because if you had to wait 4 or 5 minutes and your body's cooling down, I wouldn't consider that competitive. Then the only thing that was competitive about it was the running in between.
Exactly. And I agree with that. And do you have, for your competitive, is it obstacle completion or do you have a penalty?
So we have a lap for certain obstacles. Our crawls, our walls, our carries are all mandatory. And if they don't complete those, then we take their bib. But if they fail an obstacle, they only have one chance, and then they have to complete a penalty lap. And then also a penalty lap at the midway point, they have to grab a band to show that they completed the penalty lap.
Okay, that makes sense. See, that's cool. That's one thing that I've argued with people on the idea of obstacle completion or a penalty. So it's kind of one of those. I feel in some races, I've seen quite a few times where you have the people that know they don't have the skill to do the obstacle, so they'll basically won't even attempt it and just go straight to doing, their penalty because they know that they're fast enough that, they can catch the guy who can actually do the obstacle. So they rely on their speed.
Yeah, so we tell everybody that you have to at least attempt the obstacle and then at least to slow them down a little, and at least, try. And then they have to do their penalty. But I remember when I was doing Battle Frog, it was mandatory completion. And I remember being on the course and seeing a whole bunch of people have absolute meltdowns because they were like, I completed that obstacle. And the volunteer was like, no, you didn't. And then you have this standoff in the middle of the course. I've been trying to avoid that. And I think our competitive waves will evolve over time. And we'll, probably have to change our policies here and there. I'm not really married to any one way, but last year it seemed to work really well and everybody had a great time. And, aside from, actually we really didn't have anybody come back and go like, that was unfair, or I should have, I was cheated out of my placement. It was very clear, like the between first, second, and third, and the people that came in 4th and 5th, it was like a 10-minute difference. We had these really high-level guys come out there and just blaze through this course, and then everybody else, that didn't have a placement, they all just got out there and had fun. They pushed themselves. Yeah,
and that's the way it should be. I mean, that's the way I've been, because I've seen the other ones. Battle Frog's one that I missed because the one time they were up here in Seattle, I broke my foot 3 weeks before.
Oh, man.
So my kid likes to rub in my face that he got to do Battle Frog and I never will. So he's like, look at the medal I have, Dad, that you're never going to get. And I'm like, thanks, you little jerk.
No.
Because he took my race. When I couldn't race, it's like, well, so I transferred it over to him and he did it for me. So
I hate to rub it in, but it was an incredible series. They did a great job.
I heard they did, and I was so mad because I was sitting there talking to him. I was there on crutches with my kid, and even the announcer's like, why aren't you out there? I'm like, honestly, if it was like 3 weeks from now when the doctor said I could walk on this boot, I would be out there. I mean, I did Hawaii in a full boot because the doctor said I could walk.
That. Yeah, I listened to your last podcast.
So, I mean,
it's so nuts.
And it's one of those things I would not advise anybody do that. That was probably one of the dumbest decisions I ever made, but I did it anyway. But if I could go back, I'd do it again. I wouldn't,
For sure.
But it's one of those I've just, I've seen the, Battle Frog, I kind of saw that, but Terrain Race had the mandatory completion. And I remember talking to some of the people that like literally were losing it, because there was one girl that I know was in second place, and she got to, I think it was the Tarzan swing. And she just, for whatever reason, her brain didn't want to like figure out how to do it. And she sat there for 45 minutes.
Man.
Going again and again and again, because she was not going to give up her band.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, that's dedication. She's like, I was going to do multiple laps, but I figured I did the Tarzan swing for 45 minutes. So, but it's like, just because she didn't want to give up that band, she's like, I'm not giving up this band. I am finishing this obstacle. It's like, okay, go for it.
Yeah. That's why I love the sport. I love the idea of having, competitive and elites and people going out there and giving their all. But at the end of the day, it's not black. There's so much gray area in OCR. And I think Spartan Race is probably one of the only ones that do a really great job of making it super fair, because they have so much infrastructure. They have cameras watching your burpees and just, course referees and more than enough lanes for people to go through. Like, that's really their focus, and they do a really good job. But like, for us being a small local OCR, I want to get to the point where we have more infrastructure, but I know that it's going to be a learning process for both us and the people that do our race. And I don't know whether or not we're going to keep doing this, penalty lap, or we have to, switch to mandatory completion. But I want to at least give people, the ability to finish the race and not feel like they lost, like DNFs. I want people to get through the finish line. I think that, the top three people, as long as it's fair and I have enough volunteers out there making sure that they actually did complete the obstacles and then just run past them, like those top three people, you see it at every race. You can kind of almost predict who's going to win a race.
Yeah.
Those guys are always on the top three.
Yep.
Yeah. So
it's kind of one of those things. You just want to make sure that, Spartan has, not to sound bad, but Spartan has a lot of money. So, and they've been doing this for a while. So they figured out that way. But I mean, for you to have, somebody with a camera videotaping every single person as they come through at every obstacle, that's just,
man.
I mean, with phones nowadays, it's kind of realistic to a point, but then reviewing it and everything, it's like, no.
Yeah. No, I don't want to focus too much on that. I remember there was a race out here called Atlas Race. And I did one of them, and they were like,
I remember hearing about them.
Yeah, and it was a cool race, but it was like another one of those races where they would do elite with a purse, and people would go out there and there'd only be 2 lanes at certain obstacles, and people would lose their mind when they were like waiting in line, and their money was on the line for this purse. It was a weird thing. So I really want to focus on people going out there and just having a good time, and the general waves just, pushing themselves on the terrain. And I come from a CrossFit background, so our obstacles are a little heavier than some of our competitors. So when you go out there, you're going to be, there's a lot of time under tension obstacles. Like we have a jerry can carry that's heavy and long. And actually that was a product of Battle Frog. I remember doing that jerry can carry at Battle Frog and just being like, this is rough. Because they used to have some long, like half-mile jerry can carries with obstacles in between. And I love that because you don't see that anywhere else. So we have a really long, it's a little longer than a quarter-mile jerry can carry with some heavy jerry cans. And then we have this yoke, which is basically a pole with center blocks coming off of it. And that's super heavy. A lot of people complain about that, just saying that it's too hard and that's the hardest thing. It's also about placement, too. We put it in like 3/4 into the race where you're already smoked. So you have to do this thing with your core being done and your quads being done. And I want to push people, but I want people to have a good time.
Yeah, and I'm one of those ones I've had, because there's been a lot of, I don't know if you've seen all the huge debate and everything about the Seattle Spartan races. Because they're in April, it can be very cold and wet and nasty. It's like, it's Seattle. What do you expect? But there's been a lot of arguments with people that they say it's too cold. It's what, there's problems. They need to move it. It's too much. It's everything like that. And I'm like thinking, didn't we get into OCR to push ourselves?
Yeah.
I'm like, in my mind, it's like, if I know it's going to be cold and nasty, then I either need to fix it in training or fix it with gear.
Yep.
So it's not about I'm not the type of person to go to the race and say, hey, you've made this too hard, make it easier for me.
Yeah.
I'm more of the type to say, okay, they've made this too hard for where I'm at right now, and I need to figure out how to fix that so that when I come back next time, it's not so hard.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we have too many people now. There is. Yeah.
Because for us, like last year, we had horrible weather all week, and I was freaking out that it was going to rain on race day because I feel like it kills the vibe at the village. And I want people to remember having a good time before and after the race. So we had this ridiculously muddy course, which we weren't expecting, because the year before that, it was basically like 90 degrees on race day. It was beautiful weather, cool breeze coming along, sunny all day. And then last year, it had rained all week, so the entire course was just this big mud pit. And I was worried that people were going to complain about that because some of our marketing in the beginning was like, hey, we don't have any water obstacles and we don't have any mud obstacles. But that wasn't really my choice because it just was horrible weather. The night before, our entire festival area was flooded. So I spent probably from 2 in the morning until 6 in the morning basically pumping out big puddles of water so that our festival wasn't just completely flooded. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
But everybody had an amazing time and nobody complained about the mud. And that was another learning experience for me that I think I was worried too much about the comfort of people and didn't realize that, the people that come out to these local OCRs, they don't care about comfort. They just want to have a good time. And we didn't even have a changing tent, which is something that we're going to, nobody even complained about that, but it's something that was in the back of my mind. Like, hey, these guys are going to be in mud and they're not going to even be able to change until they get back to their cars. But nobody even said anything. Everybody was just there to have a good time.
See, that's what's awesome is, with this community, you get that, a lot of times where people are just, they're happy. They're happy that there's a race and they're having a blast and they don't think about those things. You get at the bigger events. Yeah. You're going to get people like, there's no changing tent and they're going to have issues because these things aren't there that they're expecting. But usually if it's someone going to a local event, there's somebody that's into OCR.
Yeah.
And they're going to be okay with like, oh, hey, there wasn't a changing tent, maybe next time, but it's kind of one of those that you just want to have a good time. And if you're giving them a good time, most people can completely, forget those things. I've been to ones before where, and that's it. That's the big push. Do you get people back? And that's how if you're doing good. I've seen events that say they did good, but then nobody goes back the next year. It's like, well, obviously it wasn't that good because nobody wanted to do it again. So, yeah. Nice. So, and you said normally your event's in February, right?
Yeah. So this year we're going to have a 2-day event. So our first day is going to be our normal distance, which is about 8 miles. And then the second day we're going to have a reduced course. And we're actually going to reverse it. So the people that do it the first day and the second day, they're not doing the same race twice. Okay. On the second day, we'll have a backwards course, which something that Spartan used to do. I don't know if you've ever been to a Spartan race where they would reverse the course for the second day.
No, but that would be an awesome thing to do.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't feel like you're doing the same race twice.
Right, because I've done that a lot where you do like the super on Saturday and then the sprint on Sunday or the beast and then the sprint, and you're just basically doing the same first 5 miles over again. And you're like, okay, that was cool. It was fun to do it, but, there's a low-hanging fruit, especially when you have a loop obstacle course race, to just reverse it, and then you get to at least do the obstacles in a different order and different terrain. And that's, something that's super important to me, that people don't feel like they're just getting fed the same thing over and over again. And not that, I love Spartan, and they have a crazy logistical undertaking that I can never imagine, having to host a new race in each city weekend after weekend. And that is why things have to be somewhat cookie cutter. But that's what's cool about guys like me when you're able to, basically determine everything. Like I don't have to worry about my, insurance agents coming out and checking out the course, which I'm sure that a lot of decisions that Spartan has to make are insurance based. Like they can't put you through hell anymore because, they have to make sure that if they're going to have 12,000 people over a weekend, that everybody's safe. So I get why they have to do certain things, but luckily we get to break that mold and do things a little differently, which is, I hope people see and appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm definitely gonna have to plan on, being in California next summer. So, or next February.
Sure. Yeah,
I'm definitely gonna have to come down there.
And then, we have plans for some other events too.
What kind of other events are those ones that you can talk about, or is they hush hush?
Yeah,
secret squirrel kind of thing.
So we have another event coming up that's it'll be a smaller event, and it's gonna emulate hunting. So you're basically going to have like a 2-mile OCR, and then you're gonna do archery halfway through. So it's gonna be like Spartan spear throw, but with a bow and arrow. And then you're gonna take a 60 to 100 pound sandbag and then carry that back to the finish line rather.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so basically testing people's accuracy after they've gone through, about a 2-mile OCR course, and then they get rated on their accuracy, and then, a sandbag carry back into the finish line, which is something I haven't seen before.
Yeah. It's not a bad idea. I know someone was talking about a course that they did where one of the things you could get a special medal or something if you carried a 40-pound sandbag through the entire course.
Yeah. So we actually have a ruck division for our main event. So we give out a patch for, somebody wearing a weighted ruck or a weight vest. And because that's something that I enjoy. I'm more into the go rucks and the hurricane heat. So I enjoy carrying. I do a lot of my OCRs weighted. I do a lot of my trail races and road runs weighted. And I just, it just appeals to me. So I have been recognizing people that do it at our race. I've done it at Spartan races. I got my trifecta in 2016 with a weight vest on for every race. I did, which sprint did I do? I did the stadium race. I did Castaic, Spartan in a weight vest, and I did Monterey Super in a weight vest, and I did Montana not Montana, Big Bear in a weight vest. I should have done Montana in a weight vest because Big Bear was terrible. But
I've heard that. I know there's some beats that have been doing what they call ruckfecta, and that's basically the same thing. It's basically rucking a trifecta. So
yeah, and I don't know why Spartan doesn't recognize that. There's no weight division. I think it's because of it has to be an insurance thing for them, and they don't want to promote people wearing weighted vests during their race, and they don't want to bottleneck people at certain obstacles because there was a whole bunch of dudes in weighted vests that can't get through it. So I get where they come from, but that was something I wanted to set myself apart because I know so many people that ruck their OCRs or they do them weighted. And so we have a ruck division you could sign up for and at least get a patch for also doing it weighted.
Nice. So what do you get do you get a medal at your races, or do you guys have patches?
Yeah, so we give out a medal, a finisher shirt. If you do our races, if you've done our race before, you also get a legacy patch. So people that did our race in 2018 and 2019, in 2019 they got a legacy patch for doing it back to back. We'll do the same thing this year. They'll get a legacy patch for doing it year after year. So medal, patch, shirt, finisher beer, and then if you did the ruck division, you'll get another patch as well. So if you do ruck division and you've done our race back to back, and then you do our race, you're walking away with a finisher shirt, a medal, and 2 patches, which is kind of a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So And I know it sounds horrible, but that's a lot of us do it for the medals. But and that's not really true. I say that because I like having my medals, but I do it for the memories.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Our partners, they only host trail races, right? And they're great at designing medals. They design these badass medals, but they do it because they're creative. But most people that do trail running, like ultra running, they don't care about medals. They throw them in like a bin or something like that. They're not on display. They don't get posted on Instagram. They're more of just like, hey, it's just a memory, or it's a Strava input. But OCR people are all about their medals, and I think it's cool because it's part of who we are. So we put a lot of weight into making sure that we have some really cool medals, and that we have some really cool gear that when you walk away, you have something tangible to remember that day by.
Yeah. I mean, I have a huge wall of medals, but it's 10 years of collecting. I mean, a lot of them are road races, and like back in 2009 and stuff like that, when they first started giving out medals for like rock and rolls and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I got a bunch of those. So, I mean, it's 10 years of collecting, but I mean, I can pretty much look at every single one of them and tell you something about that race.
Exactly.
And there's got to be like 100 of them up there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I feel like in like 20 years, I could be sitting down with my son and going over them and being like, hey, this is, this medal that I got from doing this weighted trifecta, and I remember climbing up those hills in Big Bear, or, doing Ultra Beast buckles are very memorable. There's always a whole bunch of memories from an Ultra Beast. And then patches from GoRucks. I mean, every single patch I have from a GoRuck, I could look at that patch and remember a dozen, things that most people wouldn't even do in their lives, their whole entire lifetime. But I did that night. And it's cool. Yeah. And I feel like I can't imagine having an event where you don't have, you don't reward your people that came out and gave it their all with at least something. And I've done races where you don't get a medal, you don't get a finisher shirt. And it's like, whatever, I don't have any ill, thoughts towards them, but I feel like if you're going to be successful in OCR, you got to make sure that your merch is on point.
Oh yeah, because people like to show that off. So, it's Medal Monday. Every Monday, my feed is inundated with pictures of all the medals everyone got over the weekends and, all that fun stuff. So, and it's one of those things, you get in the fun argument with people that, it's just a participation trophy. It's like, nope, I've never agreed with that. A participation trophy means I got something for showing up.
Yeah.
A finisher medal means that I finished it. That I persevered and went through this and finished it. Was I first? No.
You drove all Yeah.
Was I first? Probably not. Was I last? Probably close too, but I finished it. Yeah. So we're coming up on the hour mark that I usually try and stay right at. What, in closing, I think we've got about 5 minutes. In closing, what would you like our listeners to know about your event? How sell my listeners on coming down to Santa Clarita. Is it Santa Clarita? No, it's not Santa Clarita.
Yeah.
It's Santa Clarita. Oh. Is it Santa Clarita?
No,
That's right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So sell the listeners on coming down to Santa Clarita in February to do your event.
All right. So I feel like a lot of, when you hear about local OCR, you just automatically assume that you're going to show up to a field with just a really rinky-dink start line and one or two tents, and it's going to be like this really small event, and the obstacles are going to be built poorly. And I feel like local OCR has a bad name, but my wife and I and our partners, we put so much effort and so much work into making sure that it almost feels like a Spartan race. And our goal is to, be right there with them. And we work so hard to make sure that everybody has a good experience. And the cool thing about us is you could call me, you could email me, you could DM me on Instagram, and I will listen to your feedback, and I will give you as much info as possible about this event. You know, we're very tangible. My wife and I and our partners, and we live this. This has been a really cool last 2 months. We've seen a lot of signups, a lot of great energy around the event, and I am going to keep that energy rolling into February. And I plan on really bringing a kick-ass event in February with some new obstacles that people have already done our race, haven't seen yet, and elaborating on existing obstacles. And I think it's worth the trip. Santa Clarita itself is actually a really cool town. It's growing. We're kind of a suburban town, but we have a great fitness following here, which is one reason why we've been successful. Is everybody around here, they either go to a CrossFit gym or some sort of studio, and everybody loves to push themselves. You drive around Santa Clarita on a weekend, and you'll always see people running on the side of the road, or you'll see biking, and it's just a really fitness-centric community. And we also have this incredible venue. A lot of movies got filmed where we do our race, a lot of TV shows, and it's just these incredible backdrops of rolling hills and these like burnt down forests. So you'll be running and everything's green, and then all of a sudden you're in this, little forest nook where, it burnt down maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And then now you're rolling, going up this huge ridge that's just like, brown on each side. And it's like really cool terrain. And then also what really cool part about East Walker is that certain points when you're on top, when you climb the hill, you could basically see the entire course in a 360-degree panoramic view. So you're basically like, you feel like you're part of like this huge thing. And it's so cool. Like when I remember the first year when our first wave went off, I was standing on top of this hill, and I could basically track where everybody was going up. Like our first wave, which is basically all the dudes that wanted to go out and go as fast as possible. And I was able to watch them go for the first 2 or 3 miles of the course by just standing on this one vantage point. And as a racer, that's really cool because you get to like just feel like you're part of this huge movement. Where I feel like sometimes I'm at these races and I'm like by myself. I'm like, I've been doing this for like I've been running on this mountain for an hour and I haven't seen anybody else. So it's also cool because it becomes like this really, it's more of a community vibe. And we bring it with aid stations. One of the coolest things about my partners is they bring some of the ultra running stuff to OCR. Mm-hmm. So when you get to our aid stations, there's candy and granola bars and noon at every aid station. And we actually are, nice. One of our sponsors is Gnarly Nutrition. And we fill up at least one aid station with some hydration from them. And dude, we give out as much as possible so that our racers have that everything that they need to keep going. Every station has salt pills. Every station has a first aid, and we don't have just one dude at each race station. Or aid station. We have about 4 or 5 people. And we let them decorate their aid station and just go nuts. And that has actually been one thing that sets us apart so much. Because, I've been a Spartan race and you get to an aid station and it's just like a water cup and a dude holding it. And it's just like, okay, that's cool. But I could really use like a granola bar right now or something. And, we don't skimp. We're not looking to be millionaires from this. We want to host a good event that we can keep coming back. And we don't just try to do the bare minimum to get by.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's one thing. Like, I did a full marathon actually, because Don hates me and is trying to kill me. But I did a full marathon a month ago, and it was almost about every 3 miles or so, there was an aid station with 3 or 4 volunteers. They had, the nicest people in the world. And most time volunteers they're the greatest people. I always thank them because, they're the ones that make this happen. But they had dew and water and, anything you could need. Because normally I'm used to a Spartan. So I had my pack with water and, some snacks and stuff like that. Because it was going to be 26 miles. And I'm a big guy. I was going to be out there a while. And after about the third station, I'm like, I didn't need to bring this. I don't need any of this because they provided everything I can need. Because, you know, I've done a Spartan where they ran out of water for 8 miles.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You know, because they, you know, because of how far out it was, they just weren't able to get water back out to these stations. And for 8 miles, every one we came up to was like, we're out. And we're like, oh gosh, oh no, because we were, you know, our packs were empty and we're like, you know, so I've always had that pack with me just in case.
Yeah. Our first year, we thought on one of our aid stations, we were going to run out of water. And it was a sheer panic. And we rushed over there with 4 more gallons of water. And then the girl that was at the aid station, she didn't realize that underneath the table, there was another 4 or 5 gallons. So we were fine. We had enough water there, but it's so important to us to make sure that people don't have that experience where they get somewhere to an aid station and they don't have water. I mean, that's my job in an OC, and that's the race director's job, is to make sure that racers are, they're taking care of every step of the way. And it's so important to me.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
I think that is a huge failure if you're hosting a race and a racer comes to an aid station and they don't have what they need. And I think that it's crazy that that some of these races, they don't have salt pills or anything like that at certain points. It's just, those should be the basics. And then in the ultra running community, it's completely different. You get to an aid station and they have Coke and quesadillas and all this crap. And you're like, why does this not exist in OCR when you're doing just as much work?
Yeah, see, I heard the same thing about ultras, that they do that, and I was like, wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
Yeah, it should be. So, all right. Well, thank you for talking with me. I've definitely had a blast talking to you. I will make sure that all the information anybody would need to find you is on the, when we air the episode, that they can get to you. But do you want to tell everyone kind of how they can find you real quick? And then I'll make sure that I put it on the episode too. But just let everyone know, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, web address, whatever you want.
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at grit_OCR. We're on Facebook at gritOCR. And then we have a website, gritocr.com, where all the info and registration is super simple. That's another thing that we wanted to make sure that it wasn't hard for people to sign up for our race. I think that's another deterrent sometimes, is you have to go to 6 different pages to sign up for a race, where ours is all in house. And then if we really promote teams, we really want to make sure that people, we love people that run individual, that's fine, but we really want people to come out in packs. And if you do decide to come out in a pack, please email us, and we will send you a discount code for your team.
Okay. Nice. Well, I can tell you right now, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure there's a beast team there. So,
thank you.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, once again, thank you for talking. And I think what we will do is we will have you on again, but once a little bit closer to February. So we're closer to the event and can really push it. So, because this sounds like a great event that I definitely want to go to. So,
yeah, we'd love to have you guys. And thank you so much for having us.
Oh yeah, anytime. All right. Well, thank you so much, Antonio. And I will talk to you soon.
All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.
Grays Harbor Unders makes the performance-based layer clothing you want and need. Whether you work, hunt, hike, fish, run, or ride in the great outdoors. If you work up a sweat, Grays Harbor Unders are for you, because their unique dual-layer fabric removes moisture from your body and keeps your skin dry, even when the outer layer is completely wet. It's a base layer like no other. Get you some at ghunders.com. That's ghunders.com for the best performance-based layer you'll ever wear.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast, brought to you by Beast OCR. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear. You can find us on Facebook or at beastocr.com.